welcome to the Hallmarkies podcast. We are really excited today. We are talking about one of the new movies that came out on Hallmark Channel this weekend. We are talking about A Dickens of a Holiday, and I have a Dickens of a guest with me today. I'm so excited. I am film critic Rachel Wagner, and we have Alonso Duralde here.
Howdy, everybody.
Yes, it's been actually a long time since we've had you on the podcast. We communicate so frequently. I didn't realize that it had been so long, and so welcome back. We're excited to have you.
Always a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yes, and so you've had an exciting year, particularly with your book. Why don't you tell our audience about
you mean
book?
This book?
That book.
Yeah, the Deck the Hallmark guys and I wrote this book, I'll Be Home for Christmas Movies, and it's pretty much sort of a celebration of what they do on their podcast. It's reviews of more than 100 Hallmark Christmas movies through the filter of Brand, who loves them, Panda, who likes them, and Dan, who despises them, plus special guests, plus a lot of behind the scenes fun stuff from directors and writers and actors. And obviously, if you listen to Hallmarkies, you know that it's always fun to get the inside dish from the people who work on these movies. And so we have some really fun quotes sort of interspersed throughout about how these movies get made and what it's like to sort of pretend that you're cold in August and all of that stuff that they all have to do, plus recipes for throwing a Hallmark Christmas party and a bingo card and the whole nine yards. It's a real fun book. I'm very proud of it. And actually the foreword is written by Mr. Christopher Palaha, whose new movie we're talking about today. And
you can see yours truly featured in the book.
Yes, you are.
My vocal defense again for the most wonderful time of the year, and Mr. Henry Winkler.
Yes, I think you're the one who gets into the idea of old Hallmark versus new Hallmark.
Yeah, that's right. So y'all definitely should check it out. It's a lot of fun, and there's some recipes, there's some other stuff that's just fun celebration of the season. So yeah, definitely you should check it out. We'll put a link in the description.
Wherever you get your books.
That's right. So yeah, you've even had Hallmark on your mind even more than usual.
Yeah, pretty much. That was the summer of 2020 while we were all locked in. That sort of became my permanent happy place. All that summer was just having to rewatch those movies and re-listen to those episodes and get the book all finished. But I'm thrilled that it's out there. And it's funny, I remember somebody being like, well, what if this whole phenomenon is blown over by the time the book comes out? It's no, that didn't happen. There's more, up to what, 42 this year now, right? And across all the platforms, it's just something like a 400% increase in the last 5 years of just how many titles there are on cable and streaming and all the other places. So yeah, this the Christmas phenom is not going anywhere just yet.
And I personally actually have been kind of surprised by the numbers that Hallmark has been getting this season, because they had a rough 2021 as far as non-Christmas.
Sure.
But then, and they kind of deserved to have a rough year. It wasn't a great batch of programming for the most part, but they have had a very successful season as far as the ratings, much better than any of their competitors. And that frankly surprised me a little bit, especially with such a big new competitor on the scene. I thought that might hurt them a little more than it seems to have. It didn't really.
Yeah, it doesn't look like people are either finding it or caring that much about the new thing. And of course, as has been pointed out, if you want to see those movies and you don't want to watch them on that channel, they're on Peacock and they're on IMDb TV, and often they're there before they're on the channel. So, you've definitely got some options there. But yeah, I mean, Hallmark clearly knows where their bread is buttered. And so their fourth quarter, the last 3 months of the year, I mean, they're pretty much you take news and sports out and they're pretty much ruling the roost of cable TV ratings.
Yeah. And as far as quality, how do you feel like the season has been in general? Do you think it's been a pretty good season?
I do. Yeah. I mean, I think last year and this year, you can really tell the scripts are better. I think they're thinking things through in a lot of ways, and they're shying away from the tropes that have become very easy to make fun of. I mean, I don't know if you saw last week, there were 2 different movies that were just there to spoof Hallmark movie tropes.
Right.
And I think the films themselves are getting more clever about that. We're certainly going to talk about this one where I think they really turn the all is lost moment into something completely unexpected. But yeah, I'd say generally speaking, I mean, there are still a few duds in the bunch, no question. But I think the best of this year's crop ranks among some of the best they've ever made.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd agree. I think that there hasn't been one that like has truly taken me to a dark place. Like that was awful. Like the ones I've given negative reviews to, of course, but considering other years, the bottom has been not as bad.
Yes. Agreed.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, very good. What's the second one? So there was Klusterfunke. What was the other one?
Oh, the Bee Who Stole Christmas, the RuPaul one on VH1. Also very much like, picking apart the journalist goes to the small town and, is won over by the local blah, 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 blah.
Oh, somehow I missed that one. I'll definitely have to check it out.
It's okay. Like, I think both of them would have been great half-hour specials, but like at movie length, it's like, okay, we get it,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yes, let's talk about A Dickens of a Holiday. Yes. And so this one, I wanted to talk to you about it because we had covered, not only did we do female-oriented Christmas Carol episode a while back, but we also covered Nashville Christmas Carol.
Right. Yes.
Yes. Last year. So it's become kind of, I love Christmas Carol so much.
Yeah.
And so much. And so I just thought this was a perfect one to talk with you about. And it was also written by our friend Julie Sherman Wolfe, who is one of the greats when it comes to Hallmark Christmas movie writing or Hallmark movie writing in general. She's wonderful and so funny, and she always puts some wit into her scripts. I think
little spin on things for sure.
Yeah, and she did a full rewrite. So the Mark Hefty, I think, came up with the overall concept, and then she told me that she did a full page one rewrite of the thing. So we'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast.
Sometimes love needs a little push. Lizzie Shane, the award-winning author of The 12 Dogs of Christmas, has a brand new small-town romance set in Pine Hollow, Vermont, where every happily ever after begins with adopting an adorable rescue dog.
First love gets a second chance into All the Dogs I've Loved Before when the town librarian, mischievous Australian Shepherd, keeps getting loose and fetching her ex, the town sheriff.
Lizzie Shane's Pine Hollow series has been called an irresistible blend of heart, humor, and a whole lot of puppy love.
And To All the Dogs I've Loved Before is available now wherever books are sold.
To learn more, visit www.lizzieshane.com.
That's lizzieshane.com. The summary on this one is just to make the 100th anniversary of her hometown's Victorian Festival a success. Cassie invites action movie star and former high school classmate Jake to play in A Christmas Carol. So overall, what did you think about this movie?
I thought it was pretty good. I mean, I'd say of the, Hallmark this is a well they go to occasionally, which is like, big movie star comes back to the small town to do XYZ. In fact, like we've seen Palaha even do this before, because Rocky Mountain Christmas, he plays a big movie star who goes to work at a ranch for research, I thought that element of it played really well. I thought the idea of him being this big celebrity, but his family sort of resenting the fact that he never comes around, played well, and why he never comes around also makes sense. I like the central relationship is an interesting one. You have this woman who has, attempted to make a go of it in theater in New York. She came back home when her mom was sick, and now she's torn about, what things are going to happen next. There are the scenes of how directors talk to actors and how they might sort of like, walk them through what a character is doing and what they would be feeling. I thought were, they're grossly oversimplified, but effective, like they get the point across of how that dynamic works. There were some nutty plot points, and we'll get into those, but overall, I thought this was pretty charming.
Yeah, I agree. I thought it was really charming too. And I thought that they had really nice chemistry, and I love Brooke Dorsey, but she's had a bit of a rough run the last while. She did like Miss Christmas, which I personally just loved. I thought it was
Sure.
great. And then ever since then, her movies have not been great. Like she's always, I think doing a good job, but Nostalgic Christmas wasn't great. She did the Beverly Hills Wedding, which was
I forgot about that was her. Yeah.
She's had in the last year's Godwink
Nostalgic
movie
was not great. Yeah,
last
right.
year's Godwink movie was bad. I mean, all it takes to make a Godwink is for them to live next to each other. That's not doing it for me.
That is a whole franchise whose appeal escapes me entirely. I think actually Bran on Deck the Hallmark put it well, which is that basically everything that happens in those movies is the kind of sort of contrivance or coincidence or fate that happens in all of these movies, but in those specifically, it's like because God, and that just never quite plays.
And I mean, I just feel like they're trying this weird in between, like not actually being a faith-based film, like none of the characters actually pray on screen or like go to church or whatever, but like then trying to capture that audience, which just doesn't work. Like, in my opinion, you make 45 movies, one being faith-based, fine, but like actually do it and do a good job at it.
Yeah, I mean, like, did you see the Kirk Franklin Lifetime movie?
Yeah.
Because that at least to me felt like, all right, we're going to be churchy, and that's the context here, and so people are going to quote scripture to each other or do that kind of thing, and it didn't take me out of it as a non-believing heathen, And so I think Hallmark tries to ride that line, which generally works for them. But you're right, if you're going to do the Godwink books, which I imagine are much more faithy than the movies are, it's like, do it or don't do it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I just saw the Best Christmas Pageant Ever, the play yesterday, and I was thinking, well, that would be a really fun. I mean, it has been adapted.
I was going to say, they did it a while ago, right?
But it was years ago. That would be a fun, I think. Faith-based.
If they can come back to Mrs. Miracle, they can do that one again.
Yeah, exactly. but yeah, anyway, she's had a tough run, and so I was really happy for her that we got to see this good performance, good chemistry. We got to have got Brooke D'Orsay back in a Christmas movie, and I thought they had nice chemistry. And at first, like the brother was kind of bumming me out, like he was a little bit too bitter.
Yeah, right.
A little too bitter. But they won me over by the end. Their reconciliation was moving and well done. And so you
have to have a place to bring it back from. So I guess I hear you. It didn't take me out of it, but sure. Yeah.
What do you think of Throttle Run 3? Would you be excited for this franchise?
That was like that. This is right up there with Handsome Justice as far as like them faking something and making it look like, okay, that I could see that this would be a thing that would exist in like real Hollywood. I thought the whole thing with the green screen and the car and the fan machine, the wind machine was funny, and the moment where like he asks which one her favorite movies, it's just the thing with the car, and he's like, that's all of them. That like the show busy aspect of it, I bought it. Like I bought the house, I bought the assistant. You would think that movies about movies would know their subject better, but so often in these movies, in these films, they kind of bobble what living in LA or being a star looks like, and this one felt like closer to the truth.
Yeah, it was fun with like the wind machine and he's on top of the car.
Palaha's clearly having a blast with this.
We got to talk with him this last week, and he clearly had a ball making this movie. He was so excited about his accent. He was saying how he just dreamed of having a British accent in one of these movies.
It's I don't know that it's always quite the same thing, but by the time this is the tricky thing, and I think that he's doing it pretty well, which is it's like you have to be a good singer to pretend to be a bad singer. I think you have to be a pretty good actor to pretend to be a bad actor. And so he does take us through, like when he starts, he's terrible. Like that first scene with the nephew in rehearsal, it's like, oh, you're too big and you don't know what you're doing here. But then by the time you see the actual performance, it's like, okay, so he takes us on that journey, of the actor learning how to play the role.
But evidently it was enough to have been amazing to these these producers who the assistant records the rehearsal.
Oh, right. But he can only get the role in the movie if he goes to the party on Christmas Eve, which is like, what kind of pea picker is going to, insist on that, especially when you were impressed by the rehearsal of the show that he has to do that night. Like that's, can we unpack that now? Because that's the thing in this movie.
Because the thing about these movies is that nobody has anything on Christmas Eve. Like one.
No, it's always that's when all the business happens. Yeah. And so even if we take that as a given, like that's just a thing they do in these movies.
Yeah.
He's like, nope, not going to go to the party. I'm committed to do this play. This matters to me. And she is like, no, this is too important to you. I'm firing you from the play so you can go do that. Okay, the whole movie, it has been established that it's a huge deal for the town, that they put on this play. It's the 100th festival. They got this movie star in. The press is coming.
Yeah.
Why is she suddenly so cavalier about him not doing it anymore? That was the one part that I felt like, wait a minute, you have some stakes in here too. You can't just toss him and you're going to step in at the last minute in a nightshirt and a cap and play Scrooge. Just like
that was an interesting choice, because usually it's the opposite, and then they like hold a grudge for unreasonably long amounts of time.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of these, like, oh, it's the big music star comes back to town. Oh, it's the talent show on the 23rd. Oh no, I have to do a TV special. Bye. Oh no, I changed my mind. I'm back.
Yeah, and usually it's like in the middle of some kind of major presentation where they're like, I have to leave right now.
Yeah, so I mean, kudos to Julie for not going down that path that we've seen a million times. But I think the alternate to it is like, wait a minute. I get that he would turn down the party because he wants to be there for the show because he's in love with her and he's committed and yada. I did not buy her suddenly deciding, screw it, I'll just be Scrooge. And when the Cleveland TV station showed up to see the movie star, I'll be like, oh no, he had to leave. They didn't write themselves into that part working for me.
Yeah. Well, I agree. I completely agree with you that. And then also, like, the fact that they would only have one showing of this play.
One performance. Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
like that seems like a lot of effort to go to for one. Like, I can understand a weekend of the play, but to only have one showing.
And if you have this big movie star coming to town, like, it seems like there would be a line out the door. Like, there would be a waiting list, throngs of people trying to get in. It would be a madhouse because, Jake's back in Ohio. And it just seems very kind of casual, like, oh yeah, no, people are there and whatever.
Yeah, they did here in one of our local theaters, Hale Center Theater, Orem. They had Andrea McDonald come for one production that was a special, and you had to pay like extra, and there were still like you had to be there on the on the day that they were available to get tickets to this Raisin in this, I think it was Raisin in the Sun that they did.
Andrew McDonald. Okay.
Yeah. But if they had, like, can you imagine if they had, like, I don't know, like Jake Gyllenhaal at your local theater, like doing Christmas Carol.
Tom Cruise, that kind of thing. It's like, there would be, I think more people would show up to see his Ebenezer Scrooge.
Yeah, I would hope so. But I did absolutely love this movie had for local theater and community theater. That, just as someone who loves community theater, I think I sometimes even like it even more than going to the Broadway and going to the professional productions. There's something about that community spirit that's so fun, and I just think it was so sad for me when they were all closed down. And so once I got vaccinated, I made a commitment that I was going to support local theater as much as humanly possible, and through the summer was my original goal, but I kind of kept it going. And I've seen,
on Twitter, you are always at the shows. I'm very impressed with that, with your commitment.
I've seen over 40 productions since I got vaccinated. Man. So I'm really proud of that. And I happen to live in a place where, in Utah, we have so many. Local...
clearly if you keep going, so there's a lot of choices, obviously.
Yeah, I only have one repeat of a show. Wow. I saw Hunchback of Notre Dame in 2 different theater productions.
The Disney one? Is that
the Disney one? Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Which I think is significantly better than the movie.
I can see that.
They improved it a lot. But anyway, I love local theater. I think it's just such a beautiful, wonderful thing. And like, even when it's maybe not the best show or the best production, like, just people are giving up of their time like to do this. And I just think it's really special and cool. And I love live performance, whether it's this going to the symphony or, you know, going to you know, an opera or any. I just love that energy. As much as I love movies, I love live performance.
And being in one of those shows, it's like there's the romances and the gossip and the, you know, the friendships that form. And so you get a little bit of that, like the guy who's playing, you know, the nephew is clearly in love with the woman who's playing Belle. And you know, I love like the big lummoxy guy. You're like, who is he? Oh, of course you're the Ghost of Christmas Present. Like, that's, you put a wreath on his head. It's like, yes, perfect casting. You were absolutely the person they should have in this thing.
Yeah. I almost wish that I could see like the whole show, you know, since they gave us so many clips of the show. I almost wish they had just filmed it all and I could see the whole show of
I have a super nitpick here, which is like, this is mean, but I'm just going to say it. Okay. So the show opens, like she's ready to go on thinking that he's not coming back. And she's got the night shirt and the cap and everything. But in rehearsal, we have seen the scene where the nephew, what is the nephew's name? It's not Bob. It's Fred, thank you. Fred comes to Scrooge and Marley to wish him a Merry Christmas and that whole speech. So there's got to be some point where Scrooge is wearing his business clothes at the beginning of the show before putting the pajamas on. So
I'm a super nitpicky person because I noticed that too. I'm like, wait a minute here.
Good, I feel better then.
Because you got to have Jacob Marley scene, and he can't be already in his suit if he's in front of the door.
Exactly.
With the Marley ghost.
I did love the fact that the old guy who played Scrooge every year, who had lost his voice, got to play Christmas Future. That was a nice touch.
Oh yeah, I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, they introduced him during the curtain call.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that was fun. So yeah, basically the reason why they need him to step in is because the actor who had played Scrooge all these years has vocal nodules.
Yeah,
which is like a huge disaster. Like if that happens, like it happened to Julie Andrews, which is so sad. It just makes me sad that she can't sing. But
yeah, he has to be on total vocal rest for like a month, so there's no way he can do it.
Yeah,
and he's the Sir Patrick Stewart of Central Ohio, we're told at the beginning.
Which, you know, I'm not a fan of the Father Christmas movies, and it just made me think of that, where it's like supposedly this actor, the stage actor, was like so well known that like any scandal was searching his name. But
that's the other thing. Like Hallmark has gone to the well of putting on a Christmas Carol before, and like there's the Father Christmas movies, and there's also that one with Brennan Elliott.
Oh, that one is terrible.
Which is not good. Yeah, exactly. So I was a little skittish about this one because I still remember how not interesting that one was.
Well, and they act like in that having a female Scrooge in that movie is like revolutionary. Like nobody's ever tried that before. Only 5 million times. Like, what?
There's now even a version called a Stella Scrooge that was they did on stage last year, and now I think you can stream it.
Oh really? I didn't know that. Yeah, there's even the Barbie version. I mean, there's every female version. Like it's ridiculous. And,
Susan Lucci, Cicely Tyson, Tori Spelling, you name it.
Yeah. But I think I could have used more of, if I'm nitpicking, I guess I could have used more of a Scrooge arc, a Christmas Carol arc for our lead character. Like that would have been nice to have him kind of go through, like maybe he kind of hates Christmas and that's part of the reason he doesn't want to go to Dickens, during Christmas time. Like I think that could have been funny, but they're as we saw in Nashville Christmas Carol, like they're so hesitant to make any of their characters unlikable.
Right. And I think that might have been a hat on a hat. Like, I think you can sort of do the story where it's like it's the movie star who has to come to terms with the family that he left behind and he hasn't been in touch with, and also the girl that he loved in high school, but she didn't realize it. That's always a Hallmark fave. You know, you were meant to be together at 14 and are only now like fulfilling your promise. So you know, that might have been dumping a lot on this movie's shoulders. I think the way they went with it was like your sort of standard-ish Hallmark plot, but then also working in this live theater production of A Christmas Carol.
Yeah, but I would love if they did another true version of Christmas Carol. I mean, the only one they've ever done is really the Carrie Fisher one,
right? And
that I have fun with that. I enjoy it, and they do have some fun making I forget the actress's name, but making the lead character a pretty good Scrooge. Yeah, in that one, she like completely disses the Santa bell ringer, which, you know, means she's evil.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping maybe, you know, new Hallmark accommodates the notion of like a less likable protagonist if they're going to be actual Ebenezer Scrooge, right. You know, and then allows us to take that journey of them, you know, having that redemption, and you can work romance into it, certainly, right? Because I know that's always a must for these.
Yeah, sometimes to a fault, but yeah, I mean, in Nashville Christmas Carol, people are literally begging to work with Scrooge. They love her so much.
That movie is so wrong, and no Christmas future. Like, boo! I'm sorry, you don't get to drop a whole ghost. That does not count as an adaptation. Hallmark.
But I loved it when he in this movie when he comes in, bah ha ha. You know, I mean, like that was a really fun entrance. Yeah, that was good.
And I did like the idea of somebody who, you know, because having like, I did theater in college, and there is that thing of like, oh, you're good at props and like backstage stuff, that is what you're going to do forever. Like, you might have ambitions to get into shows, but once we know you're actually, you know how to hang a light or like build a flat, then you got to do that, because there's way more people who think they can act than there are people who can actually do a physical thing in the theater. So I bought the whole backstory of like, yeah, I never got cast in anything in high school because I knew how to build sets.
Yeah, that's true. And I don't know, he just had a really fun energy about his performance that I appreciated. And I loved just the whole aspect of this group that he was invested in, you know, putting on the production and their little, like the dress rehearsal, I guess, you know, where they have their kind of huddle. That was very, you know, the best thing. I mean, I would love to get back into doing, I haven't done anything since high school, but I think it would be so fun just to be part of that group experience. My friend, one of the local theaters, she does all the lighting. And so I kind of live vicariously through her when I go to see something. They're doing the Christmas Story Broadway play musical or whatever over there. Cool. So I can't wait to see it. And just
there's a fun energy in that. I haven't been in a play obviously in decades, but yeah, I've definitely that's been a lot of fun. I also I think some of the best writing in this movie is sort of the early awkward conversations between the two of them, like the FaceTime chat they have, and then when he shows up, the way that like that whole I said that, like, you know, you can tell they're sort of trying to connect to each other, but they're so guarded. Like those are, I think it's hard to write, you know, they don't like each other banter well, you know, before they fall into each other's arms, but you know, that's handled really well here.
Yeah, it's also extremely Christmassy, this movie. I mean, I know that goes without saying with Hallmark, but like they did a very good job. I mean, this thing is garland insane. This town,
the whole festival going on with the wassail and the carolers and everything.
Yeah, I mean, one scene where he's talking to her in the I think it's in the hotel, and it was just, I couldn't believe how much garland there was in one shot. It was unbelievable to me.
At least the town of Dickens, Ohio understands the assignment. You know, like we've seen movies that are set in towns called Christmas where they don't do the Christmas festival anymore. Like, your name is Christmas. You can't not do the festival. What's even happening here?
Ho, ho, ho. We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies Patreon.
Do you love Hallmarkies podcast, especially at Christmas?
Do you enjoy the holiday previews, recaps, interviews, and bonus episodes?
If the answer is yes, please consider supporting the Hallmarkies Patreon. We need your help to do what we do both during the Christmas season and all year round.
But not only do you help a podcast led by strong, independent women by becoming a Patreon, you get to become a part of the Hallmarkies family.
Starting at only $2 a month as a patron, you will have access to our Facebook Patreon group where we talk about the movies, shows, and more all year.
We also have many monthly patron watch-alongs with guests like Lacey Chabert, Natalie Hall, Paul Campbell, Mary Lou Henner, and more, giving their behind-the-scenes details of their films.
As a patron, you also have the chance to provide input into the podcast and even join us at different tiers.
So this Christmas season, spread some cheer to the Hallmarkies Patreon and become a member today. You won't regret it.
Go to patreon.com/Hallmarkies to learn more.
That's patreon.com/Hallmarkies.
This whole like super attachment to your hometown, like that is something that I don't relate to because my family has moved so much that I just don't
Sure.
really have that like home base that is, or like when people are really struggling about their parents selling the house or whatever, that's something I don't connect with because my parents have moved many times. Like I don't have a home kind of thing. And I mean, getting to be with my family is always great, but
Sure.
but
Wherever
yeah,
that happens to be.
the idolization of the hometown is something
I
I don't
think-
necessarily connect with in these movies.
Yeah, but I think that's part of. I think that's one of those things that's not necessarily meant to reflect real life, but it's meant to reflect what people want to see in these movies. There's a really interesting book that was done about like 20 years ago called Bowling Alone, and the premise is that like people, like more people bowl than ever, but most people bowl by themselves. And it used to be that like, you know, you look back at the 50s and 60s in this country and people belonged to bowling leagues. They were more involved in their PTA. They were, you know, members of the Kiwanis or the, you know, Rotary or whatever. Like there's a lot more sort of community organization in people's lives. And there isn't now, like between how the economy has everybody working all the time and television and all these other factors. And so I think part of the thing that we're being sold in these movies, part of what makes them sort of a moving greeting card in a lot of ways, is this idea of like the town comes together to have a festival, or like, you know, my quilting circle is having a bake sale to pay for the kids' music, you know, whatever. You know, so I don't think we're meant to necessarily relate to the idea of, oh, my home, oh, my house, oh, my hometown, but I think we're meant to crave that connection because so few of us have it. You know, like the idea of these idealized small town where everybody's up in each other's business, but in a sweet way, you know, I think is something that so few of us have, that it's presented as a sort of aspirational, oh, wouldn't that be nice if, you know, and that's why it comes up so often in these movies. That's my theory anyway.
That's a really good point. I agree. I actually really love that book. I think it's very good. And also, I think you also see a lot of, to speak to another sociology text, the third place, you know, the whole idea of that we kind of lost, that everybody has their work, their home, and then that third place. And that's something that, that, you know, Hallmark movies really lean into, you know, this idea of whether it's the bookstore or the, you know,
the
community center or, you know, some kind of place, that there's this like third place that is like sacred, basically. That you know, have.
And you know, again, I think these are also, these small towns are always the fantasy of like, you never see a big box store, a Starbucks, a chain, anything. It's always like my dad's hardware store, the bookstore that the sweet old lady has owned forever, the coffee shop where we all hang out. And it's, you know, like everything is super local, which is great and is an ideal thing, but I think is again sort of aspirational, because so many of us, especially like once you're in the suburbs and in smaller towns, like everything around you is a Walmart, a Starbucks, you know, an Applebee's or whatever. And so we miss that connection of like, my small town has this and nobody else has this.
Well, and that's the ironic when they try to do sort of the You've Got Mail kind of plot line with the big box and the small, is that now like the big box are actually struggling kind of as much as it's the small like
True.
mom and pop that might have a
Unless
niche
they're on the
audience. That you think Borders is gone, Barnes and Noble's, struggling, things like that. So it's they had on the Peacock, they had one with Maggie Lawson, where they have a niche Christmas tree lot business, and Christopher Russell comes in with his big box Christmas tree lot, whatever. And it was just like, it completely rings flat now, because they would be struggling just as much as the small, if not more so.
Actually, you know
nowadays.
what? I take it back about the chains, because I forgot, in this very movie that we're talking about, we get a lot of big fat Ace Hardware signage. Like, there was a bag early on. I thought, okay, well, that's pointing to camera. I see what we're doing. And then when they stand under the awning and he's like, oh, look where we are. I'm like, oh man, this movie is leaning in hard. Yeah. And of course, like the one time in a Hallmark movie this year, I think, where I've gone from where that first ad spot isn't just the sneak peek of whatever the next movie is. There was an Ace Hardware commercial and then the sneak peek. Like that, they bought this 2 hours and they got their money's worth.
Yeah, I'm always fascinated by the whole product placement thing, because I just feel like, does it work? It must work, because they keep doing it, and so they must see some kind of benefit. But for the life of me, can't imagine anybody being like, they just made green bean casserole in this Hallmark movie, I'm going to go and make some myself and go buy some.
They spent the last 5 minutes talking about green bean casserole. Well, I mean, I think what it boils down to is that nobody watches commercials anymore. Yeah. Like, if you're watching on a DVR, you boop, boop, boop right through it. And so now it's like, it has to be inside, I mean, it's just shameless the way they do that sort of thing. But the Daisy sour cream on the counter, and the Campbell's and the Nestle chips, and the Folgers was always my favorite. That was the most, back in like 2016, 2017, those Folger shots were just so like lovingly framed, still light. That Clusterfunk Christmas does that a lot with the Maxwell House coffee. But yeah, I think it's just because, all right, if no one's actually watching the commercial breaks, the commercials now have to be in the movie that people are watching. Yeah,
I guess that's what they have to do. Have them like talking on Apple phones or iPhones or things like that to try to get people to buy it. But yeah,
in what was it, the Mingle All the Way, there's a Jergens like squirt on the hand. It's like, oh, we're just gonna insert that. Okay, that and Paul Campbell showing off the Balsam Hill lights in Holiday Hearts. Bad. That one's like, you've got to be kidding me. And what's the one where she flips the card over just to look that it says, it's Brooke Dorsey, I think, in last year's God Week movie, right? Didn't she flip the card over so we get a look at the Hallmark signature logo? It's like,
there's surprisingly few Hallmark cards.
You'd think
promos.
Hallmark would be more shameless about that kind of thing. But
but
they want the outside money.
What did you think of the assistant character in this movie?
He was funny. I was thinking this guy would maybe have more than one, probably, but it's that thing of like, I'm the one person who gets to mouth off to the big movie star because we're tight. I kept thinking this was going to be an Act 3 gay reveal. It just that was sort of the vibe too. I was picking up, and it's like, okay, fine. We don't have time for that. There's enough other things going on in this movie. But no, I thought it was funny. I thought it was, he's bringing that Eve Arden second banana energy, of like, I'm here, I'm going to say something funny, and then I'm out,
Well, evidently he has a manager and an assistant, because at the end he makes him the manager.
Well, he has an agent and an assistant. I think he says he's going to make the assistant his manager. Like, he's sort of unofficially doing that, but now he's going to give him the title and the paycheck for it.
Yeah, but I thought it was really funny because it was all this stuff that that he like secretly wants and secretly likes, but like is kind of embarrassed. Doesn't want to say it in front of her. Like, don't say that I want the high thread count. She's
well, I would never.
But that's please do it. That was funny to me. And he's like, I don't even know who you are anymore.
I like the, I think a lot of times the best lines go to the best friend or the assistant or the other person in the office, who get to sort of stand back a bit and comment on what's going on.
That was especially true for Nantucket Noel, though. That movie was not good, but no. I thought the theater
people
troupe friends were hilarious.
Yes, for sure.
They were great. was like, wish the movie was about them.
No kidding. Yeah. Or it might have looked like this one, actually.
So I liked the whole scene where she's teaching him how to dance.
Yes.
Because it also came back to her saying no to him to the prom, which I thought was kind of a fun element. And it was just fun. I liked that dancing scene, and they didn't have any, like, they weren't doing it to Oh Holy Night or something like that.
No, but they were doing it to, I forget, I meant to write it down. There's something Christmassy, but it worked. Like usually that's the thing that like sets off the, I think it was it Julie who did she write One Royal Christmas? Because I remember she talked about how she made it a point that when they danced, it was to the Christmas waltz, which is her favorite Christmas song, and an actual song one can and should dance to. So I kind of had hoped for something along those lines here, but whatever it was they picked, which I can't remember at the moment, it was not glaringly like Silent Night. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I forget which was the one that they actually danced to Oh Holy Night this season. There was one, it was either on Hallmark or Lifetime, and I just was like, I could hear our good friend Dory screaming from all the way from California.
Could we not?
So then they go on their like cute little date, and they end up eating chicken pot pie at the brother's restaurant, and he's made his own take on their mother's recipe.
And she has in true director style sort of guided him on how to talk to the brother, how to communicate to the brother, to try and begin mending those fences, and it works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was good. And it sounded delicious to me.
Actors need to be told things.
Yeah. And then, he's saying, you're an amazing director. And this is something that she hadn't really realized for herself, that there was this other path that she could have gone on that she's actually better at than being like an actress.
Right.
And that she could be a director. And I always appreciate those themes in movies, is when like the actual dream isn't right for you. The other thing is actually right. I think that, like, I've always been a defender of Monsters University, because I think that's such a bold message for a children's film to be like, your dream might not work out, and that's okay.
Yeah, like higher education might not be for everyone, but it doesn't mean that you don't have something else that you're good at that you will get, fulfillment out of doing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's, what so often with these movies, they get a hard time, and deservedly so, for being like, oh, I'm gonna walk away from my law career that I've spent all these years developing so that I can do ice sculptures now. But I think there is something to be said for somebody coming to understand what gifts they have and how they might apply them. And so I think for sure you see her kind of coming into herself in terms of understanding, oh, I have this skill set, I know how to talk to people, I know how to guide them emotionally through these situations and have them come to an understanding of what's happening both on stage and off. And so maybe I do have this in me, and I don't have to give it up and take whatever awful office job my mom keeps trying to push on me.
Right. Well, and I also appreciated the fact that they worked in that she was kind of still recovering from her divorce.
Yes.
That had made Christmas kind of a tough time for her, which would be totally authentic. I get that.
Sure. Yeah.
So that was good. It made her a more interesting character. And then he says, well, I never went home, but I was always sulking around, spying on my brother
on social media. Right.
Yeah. That was good.
Going back to the divorce thing, are you noticing, like, this season, maybe last season, more of the heroines are divorced and or widowed?
Yeah.
Which to me just kind of feels like, is it that they're the stable of actresses they like are all getting older, and it becomes less conceivable that they're still single? Or I'm wondering what that's about.
I think that has to be part of it, because almost all of these actresses are in their mid to late 30s, if not 40s.
Yeah.
And so it does feel unbelievable that they wouldn't have had any relationships, in the these beautiful women
Sure, exactly.
that they would have
with the long
but even
flowing curls.
even Candace's movie this year, she was divorcee.
Right.
So yeah, it's an interesting new dynamic, but I'm glad. And they had some nice scenes with her and her mother, who's played by Camille Mitchell, who we got to interview, and she is so fun. I absolutely loved her. Yeah, that interview, we basically nerded out about Broadway theater for like 30 minutes. It was great.
There is a whole separate podcast to be done about like Hallmark moms.
Yes.
Because, I am there are movies where I'm like, okay, I don't know if I'm super excited about this. Oh, Terrell Rothery's in it. I'm in, like her, Barbara Niven,
Rebecca Staub.
BJ Harrison, there's that whole crew of them who I just think know exactly how to do these movies, and very often for me are the draw.
Yeah, I love Rebecca
Susan
Staub.
Hogan.
She looks so young that sometimes it's not the best casting, but like I just love her as a human. She gave one of the best interviews we've ever had. Great. She was so fun. And yeah, she usually, I feel like she's played Jesse Schramm's mom several times in particular. But yeah, I really liked Camille as her mom. It was just a few scenes, but I thought it was good. And they say the heart doesn't care about timing. It only knows what makes it beat faster, which I thought was a good line.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well done, Julie, on that one. And so then he's not going to be there, and she's saying, like, yes, we talked about that I don't want you to give up this. I'm not going to allow you. I'm firing you from the play.
Right.
And I can't think of, especially it sounds like this is like going to be this is not like some little indie project. This is a multi-million-dollar project, that they would be like, sorry, you had to be with your family and friends on Christmas Eve, you're out.
No, you had a job. Like, it's not even that. Like you were actually working in theater, but no, you didn't drop it for us. How dare you?
Yeah, not even just for like the filming, but to be at a party where you talk to the person, like that's just bonkers. It's ridiculous.
That's a little much. Here's the thing, by the way, I don't know if you noticed this. The inscription in the book that the mother gave him, and then the inscription in the copy of A Christmas Carol that Cassie gives him at the end of the movie, same handwriting.
Yeah, I didn't notice that. I'm like, wow, his mom was just all over the place.
Undertone, ooh, I'm falling in love with a woman with the same handwriting as my mother. That penmanship drives me wild.
Yeah.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies merch store.
Are you looking for that perfect gift for the postable, Hardy, or Hallmarky in your life?
What about getting that t-shirt or hoodie that will help you stand out at your next holiday party?
Now is the time to check out the Hallmarkies merch store.
Full of festive designs by artists like Jessica Miller, Carrie from Hallmark Comics, and more.
You can even have more than just shirts, but totes, cell phone cases, notebooks, mugs, and more.
And it isn't just Hallmark. We have designs for Anna Green Gables, Man from Snowy River, The Nanny, and more.
Every purchase at the merch store goes to help support the podcast and allows us to make the great content you know and love.
There are frequent sales, so go to tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies or see the link in the description.
That's tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies.
And so he shows up last minute and he says, I meant it when I said you could count on me. And I really did wish we could have seen the whole Christmas Carol, because I thought it looked delightful.
Well, it's funny because
obviously you can't, but I'm saying.
Sure. No, Palaha posted on his social media that sped up thing of them putting all the old age makeup on him.
Yeah.
So I was kind of expecting his onstage Scrooge to be much more of a latex affair, but then I was like, wait, if he's showing up at the last minute, like,
right,
who's got the time to throw all that stuff on his face before he goes out there? But we'll just go with that. That's fine.
Yeah, it looked fun. I liked the whole the setting, the props and everything. Like, it looked like a really fun production of Christmas Carol. A little
underpopulated, maybe, but
yeah. Well, I mean, and that was something that they couldn't do in Nashville Christmas Carol. Like they had all these big group scene, these big concert scenes planned and all
Right.
this other stuff. And obviously they couldn't do it because of COVID. But in this one,
It was
they
all
were able
rehearsals
to-
in an empty theater.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
But yeah, like this production is like, I'd like, unless everybody is doubling as a Cratchit child, I think there maybe aren't enough people in this play. But again,
Yeah.
we'll let that go.
And he says, it's Christmas and I need to be with the people I love. Is the easiest, best decision of my life. It's very cute. And then he says, wherever you are, that's where I want to be, which I love because I've said it several times already this season. I am tired of the whole, we live different places, therefore we can't fall in love. Like, I'm just tired of that being a conflict. It's so phony to me.
Or the stated or unstated assumption that the woman has to move.
Right.
I like the idea of make work, of like figuring out what the logistics are going to be. I especially like when at the end of A Sugar and Spice Christmas, when like, oh, but I have to go to Australia, and the guy's like, okay,
Right.
I'll go to Australia.
Yeah,
like, why not?
Right. That's very true. Yes. I just, you would figure it out. Like, there's no way anybody would be like, I am in love with this person, but we live in different states. So therefore,
oh well.
Yeah. I hate it. So especially in this day and age where there's so many other ways where you can communicate and see each other. And I mean, it drove me crazy on Chesapeake Shores with Traby, that they like make this big deal of how could you go on tour? I'm like, you're a singer. You're going to go on tour. That's your job. Like,
how that works. Yeah. Obviously if you want to do a movie that's about the complications of long distance relationships, they exist. Sure. And, they do have their challenges, but yeah, to have that be like, oh, well, this could never happen because, we're 2 states away. Like,
yeah, and you're like,
let's try a little harder. Come on.
Yeah, and you're like a super selfish person for like going. Supposedly Trace is like the super selfish person because he goes on tour and he's a singer, and I just like that whole dynamic makes me crazy. I'm over it. So I was so happy when he said that about wherever you are, that's where I want to be.
Yeah, because you're a movie star. You can kind of live wherever. Right. You can afford that, and that's not going to be a problem. Yeah. And you can buy yourself a nice palatial estate. I'm sure the real estate in Dickens, Ohio, is a lot more amenable than it is in Beverly Hills. You can get crazy acreage, and y'all can live there, and you can jet off to go do your, hanging from a car roof movies whenever you feel like it.
Yeah, exactly. And you can FaceTime every night and see each other just like practically like you were together when you have to do stuff for your job.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a very swoon-worthy line and really good.
Yeah.
And he says, it wasn't a line, I'm not acting. So it was very good.
That both of these actors know the assignment. They they get how these movies work, and Palaha, I think is super charming, and there is a bit of a my standard for these generally is like, do I believe that when the cameras stop rolling, this person could tell the crew a really funny joke, ideally a dirty joke, but not necessarily a dirty joke, and some of them I don't believe could, and then some of them do. And I think that the ones who have that capacity of not taking themselves and the material super seriously are the ones that come off the best in these movies. And yeah, Palaha absolutely has, there is a sense where he's enjoying the ridiculousness of what it is to be a like major action star, but as an actor can kind of approach that from that level. And Brooke Dorsey, I think, can give these characters like just enough of a little bit of, complicated emotions and sort of, rocky feelings about things where it's not just like simpery smiles all the time.
Right. I agree. I think that they were really great choices for this and they did a good job. And yeah, when they're actually sort of invested in making this a good film, and we've all seen it where they're phoning it in, Chad Michael Murray in a lot of movies.
I wasn't going to say
it, but when they're invested and trying to make a good film, but then also, like you say, not taking it too seriously, I think you get that balance and it really works, and they just have chemistry. And I think that must be like the most frustrating thing, when you have everything kind of right on paper and then it just doesn't land for some reason. The chemistry is just not there. And that must be, because it's such an ephemeral thing, it must be so frustrating for producers. And
I mean, I haven't listened to your episode, so I don't know if you were more of a fan of this one, but like for me, Christmas Contest felt like a really well-written movie. Like there were a lot of like, there were funny lines and ideas in there that I thought felt like, you know, this is the new good Hallmark that we're getting. And the two of them just did not do it for me at all in terms of their relationship.
It was such a weird movie. Like I was with on the episode 2 big CCB fans, and they were very excited about it. And I didn't hate it, but like when she's tearing apart that Christmas tree, I was like, what is this? Like that was such a weird moment. She's like sobbing, and like,
it didn't.
Just don't sob, even when there's like death and stuff. Like they don't sob on Hallmark Channel. I've never seen anybody cry that much, and I was just like, what?
I am admittedly not her biggest fan, but I did feel like she was miscast in this. Like I felt like there were comic moments where I could just feel her not landing, and then I think the emotional parts didn't quite read for me.
Well, and then that scene where she's literally like fighting with Barbara Niven, I was just like, they say really hateful things, and I don't know how I feel about that.
Well, again, but I think that's the writing, and I think the writing felt like, okay, we're going into some territory that maybe we don't usually get in these movies, but I don't buy it coming from CCB, you know. And so like I think if it had been somebody like, I could see Jill Wagner pulling that scene off, maybe.
Yeah, or like Jessica Lowndes would have been a good one.
Yeah, like they know where to pull back and sort of like where to dig, and then, you know, maybe recede a bit. And it was just like, I don't know, wasn't working for me. So you're right, there is this X factor about, you know, I think, you know, people have their favorites, like I like this guy or I like this gal, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the two of them together are going to make that thing happen that happens in these movies. But I think with Palaha and Dorsey, it does. Her hair is overwhelming to me, though. Like I know Hallmark loves the long curl, but there were times where I thought her skull is going to be swallowed up by all that hair.
Yeah. That's true. I did actually think that too. But I'm like, that hair would take so long. Like it looks easy. It looks like natural in a certain way, but like in reality, it would take hours to get that hair. You'd have to straighten it first and then put in the curls and then make them. Yeah, it would be very time.
And in the winter?
Yeah, in the winter. Especially in Ohio, where it's supposed to be so, you know, humid. Anyway, exactly. But
can we talk about the digital snow effect that everybody seems to love this year? That's got to stop. It's like this screensaver of snowflakes that are falling in front of people, but it's like nothing's landing, and it just jumps out at me every time they do it. And I'm hoping it's going to be a thing that years from now we'll go, oh yeah, that was that 2021 moment where the thing.
Yeah, it's bad, especially when there's like no other snow of any kind.
Yes, exactly.
In the scene, and you know, so it's like, I don't know, it just looks so fake. It's bad.
I mean, and I don't even live somewhere where it snows ever. I mean, but I'm sure you know, like if that's happening, there's like maybe wind that's blowing stuff up in another direction or off the ground or whatever. It's not just this single, you know, that.
I agree. Yeah. But overall, this was a really fun movie. I really enjoyed, like I said, the nods to community theater and what a great experience that is for those who participate. And I really liked their chemistry and their dynamic. I thought that the supporting characters were fun in general. And you know, I love Christmas Carol. So that was fun to see it as a plot, you know, in this kind of the nods of, am I being Ebenezer Scrooge enough, you know, kind of a thing was fun. So what would you give 1 to 5? What would you give to A Dickens Holiday?
I'd say 3.5. I think it's definitely up there. I'd say it's in my top third of the season for sure. And you know, I think there's some solid writing here, and I think also some definitely kind of like post 2019 Hallmark writing here. Where it doesn't just sort of like hit all the beats that you're necessarily expecting it to.
Yeah.
And yeah, for everything you said, yeah, the leads are dynamic. It does really capture those things about community theater that's really magical for people. And yeah, it didn't feel to me like this did not feel like one of the phoned in ones.
Yeah, I think I just on my Hallmark movie spectrum, I'd probably give it like a 4.25.
Okay.
Not comparing it to like Oscar movies or whatever, but yeah,
Oh, yeah,
it's definitely,
no, it's a separate scale.
Yeah.
I get you.
one of my favorites. My favorite was A Kiss Before Christmas. I thought that was so good. I loved that one.
Remind
James
me
Denton, Terry Hatcher.
Oh yeah. That was I mean, I'm less enamored of the ones where I know what movie they're doing, like that is one of several Hallmark movies that is like, oh, we're doing Family Man.
But it was better, in my opinion, because he didn't get a fake family in the alternate dimension, like in most of the Family Man. He loses his family.
Right, but they did that one too with is it Dream of Christmas, right? The Nikki DeLoach one.
Yeah, that's true. But I thought, because the problem with those Family Man movies is that you get invested in a family that's fake, that's not real, right?
That doesn't exist, and that it's also this handy way to punish career women for not knowing how to bake cookies. No, that's a good one. I like that one a lot. I mean, I'll tell you, I know this is maybe just because I saw it in July, but like Crashing Through the Snow is arguably still my favorite. But I really loved the first Sister Swap movie, and I'm very excited about how the second one's going to go.
I actually haven't watched that. I'm watching it today because I wanted to wait until
doing back to back.
Yeah, doing back to back. So, but
have you ever seen theater person that you are? Have you ever seen The Norman Conquests?
No.
Oh, it's Alan Ayckbourn, who's kind of like the British Neil Simon in a way, did these three interconnecting plays called The Norman Conquest. And like one play is set entirely in the garden, one is set entirely in like the living room, and one is set in like the kitchen or dining room or something. And you can do them separately, but also like they all connect to each other. So like somebody will walk out of the garden and into the house in one play, and then into the house from the garden in the other play. And so I like in Sister Swap where you have this moment where 2/3 of the way through the movie, Ashley Williams and this dude that we've barely seen show up and immediately start spouting all this stuff about what's going on with the restaurant, and you're like, what does that even mean? But that the next movie is going to explain it,
Yeah, it's very creative. I kind of thought of the Colors movies. Where there's the red, the white, and the blue. Not
Kieslowski,
that's kind of the same thing. You'll have like the characters from the different movies appear briefly in each one. So yeah, I'm very excited.
We've been waiting for a 3 Colors trilogy from Hallmark, and now finally we have.
Yeah, we finally have it. Yes. Very good. Well, thank you so much for coming and talking about this movie. This was a delight.
Thank you for having me.
It was so much fun. And tell people where they can get the book, and then also where they can follow you on social media.
Sure.
All that fun stuff.
I'll Be Home for Christmas Movies. It is literally available wherever books are sold. You can get it online. You can get it at your local brick and mortar. Please support your indie bookstores if you can. And you can still get my previous book. I'll be Have Yourself a Movie Little Christmas. I get those confused all the time, which is a guide to Christmas classics throughout the decades, and still available. You might need some ordering on that one, but you can get it. You can find me on Twitter at @Duralde, ADURALDE, and that pretty much I will link to my reviews that run at The Wrap, my podcasts, Linoleum Knife, which I do with my husband Dave White, Maximum Film from the Maximum Fun Network, Breakfast All Day, which I do with Christy Lemire and Matt Atchity. We used to do a show called What the Flick together. And once a week or so, I've been popping up on Deck the Hallmark talking about Netflix movies with Brand Dan and friend of Hallmarkies, Jax. So check those out as well.
And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all over social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. So check that out. And also make sure you're following the Hallmarkies podcast, a Hallmarkies pod, and a Hallmarkies podcast, all over social media. And if you are listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. 5 stars.
5 stars.
Appreciate it so much. Leave it on both of our podcasts. We would appreciate it so much. And then if you are watching on YouTube, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. We appreciate that so much. We also have our merch store where we have tons of fun holiday inspired designs and designs for the Hallmarky, Hardies, and Postables in your life. So check that out. And we also have the patron group, which Alonso is a member of, and it's super fun. And we have our watch alongs every month, and we're having David Weaver on this a week, actually, as when this airs, with David Weaver, and we are going to watch Christmas Town, and it's gonna be super fun. So definitely check that out, and we'd appreciate it so much. And we'll talk to you all later. Bye, everybody. Merry Christmas.
Bye.